Crying girl clutches elderly woman's hand. Her whisper sparks a 911 call. It was a quiet morning in Oakwood Park, the kind where the sun shines softly through the trees and the breeze carries the gentle sound of birds. Miss Eleanor, a sweet woman in her early 70s, sat on her usual bench, just like she did every morning. She wore her favorite old cardigan and held a paper bag filled with birdseed. Her fingers moved slowly, tossing little handfuls toward the pigeons gathered at her feet. For Miss Eleanor, this was her peaceful time. The park was her escape from a quiet, lonely apartment. Watching the birds and hearing the children laugh from the nearby playground brought her a comfort she didn't find anywhere else. Her children lived far away now, busy with their own lives, and though she didn't like to admit it, she missed having someone to talk to, someone to care for. She reached into her bag again, smiling as more pigeons fluttered down. "There you go," she murmured, her voice soft and warm. A little boy zoomed past her, chasing a squirrel, and Miss Eleanor chuckled. "Just like my Tommy used to be," she whispered to herself, remembering her grandson. But then, something changed. Out of the corner of her eye, she noticed a little girl. She was maybe 8 years old. Her clothes looked a bit messy, and her small face was tight with worry. What caught Miss Eleanor's attention the most were her eyes. Big, wide, and scared. She was walking toward her, but very slowly, like she didn't know if she should. Her eyes kept darting behind her, like she was checking if someone was following. Miss Eleanor sat up straighter, the birdseed forgotten in her lap. There was something about the child that made her heart ache. A feeling deep in her chest told her this wasn't just a lost girl, no. This child was afraid. "Hello there, dear," Miss Eleanor called out gently, not wanting to startle her. "Are you all right?" The girl froze. Her eyes locked on Miss Eleanor's for a long, heavy second. Then, without a word, she took another step closer. Miss Eleanor could see her hands trembling at her sides. The girl looked over her shoulder one more time, then back at her. That's when it happened. She moved quickly, like she'd made a choice, and reached out, clutching Miss Eleanor's hand with both of hers. Her grip was small, but tight. Her eyes filled with tears. She leaned in, her voice barely above a whisper. "Please," she said, "pretend you know me." Miss Eleanor's heart dropped. She didn't hesitate. Her instincts kicked in like a mother's would. She looked down at the child, gave her hand a squeeze, and raised her voice just loud enough for anyone nearby to hear. "Oh, sweetheart," she said with a bright smile. "There you are. I've been waiting for you. Come, sit with Grandma." The girl climbed onto the bench beside her, still holding on tightly. Her breathing was shaky, her little body pressed close like she needed to feel safe, right now. Miss Eleanor put an arm around her and glanced up, scanning the park. That's when she saw him, a man standing at the edge of the trees. Not too close, but close enough to be watching. He wasn't moving, just staring. His clothes were dark, his posture stiff. There was something off about the way he stood there, something that made her skin crawl. Miss Eleanor felt her heartbeat pick up. She turned her head slightly, pretending to fix the girl's hair. "What's your name, sweetheart?" she whispered. "Lily," the girl replied, her voice shaking. Miss Eleanor gave her a soft smile, even as her mind raced. "Lily. That's a beautiful name." The man hadn't moved, but he was still watching. Miss Eleanor didn't know what was happening. Not really. But she knew one thing for sure. This little girl had come to her for help, and she would do everything in her power to protect her. She tightened her arm around Lily and leaned in close. "You're safe now," she whispered. "Just stay with me." But inside, Miss Eleanor knew things were far from safe. She glanced back at the man again, and in that moment, she knew something was terribly wrong. Lily clung to Miss Eleanor's arm like it was the only solid thing in the world. Her small fingers gripped the old woman's sweater sleeve, and her breathing came in short, nervous bursts. She wasn't just scared, she was terrified. Miss Eleanor kept a calm expression on her face, but her heart was pounding. She could feel Lily trembling beside her. The girl wasn't pretending. Whatever had brought her here, whatever she was, running from, it was real. "Let's sit a while, Eleanor said cheerfully, smoothing Lily's hair with a tender hand. "Tell Grandma all about your day at school." She said it loud enough to carry, loud enough to sound like just another grandmother chatting with her granddaughter on a sunny day. But her eyes were locked on the man standing near the edge of the trees. He hadn't moved, just stood there, arms stiff at his sides, watching. Miss Eleanor pretended not to notice. She turned slightly, placing her body between the stranger and Lily as naturally as she could. She reached into her canvas bag, not for birdseed this time, but for her phone, her fingers fumbling just a little. Lily leaned closer and whispered, "He's been following me since yesterday. I tried to hide, but he saw me again." Miss Eleanor's throat tightened. She didn't look down. She didn't want to draw attention. She just nodded slightly and kept her voice soft and warm. "You did the right thing, sweetheart. You came to me. I'm right here." As casually as possible, Miss Eleanor pulled her phone out and unlocked it with her thumb. Her hands felt clumsy, but she made it seem like she was just checking messages. She opened the dial pad and began, typing 911 with slow, careful movements. "Do you like peanut butter cookies, Lily?" she asked suddenly, her voice bright. "You know, I made a batch just yesterday. Your favorite, right?" Lily blinked but nodded quickly, picking up on the act. "Yes, Grandma," she said. "I love those." Miss Eleanor smiled, her heart aching at the sound of the child's voice trying so hard to sound normal. She pressed call and held the phone to her ear, speaking gently into it as if it were a routine conversation. "Hello, darling," she said softly. "Yes, I'm still at the park with Lily. We're having such a nice visit, but there's something odd happening. A man's been standing near the trees, very still. He hasn't moved, but I think he's watching us." She paused, nodding slowly as if she were listening to a loved one on the other end. But in truth, it was the emergency dispatcher asking for more details. "Yes, Oakwood Park," she continued. "Near the old playground. Just us here now. Not many people around." As she spoke, she reached for Lily's hand under the bench and gave it a reassuring squeeze. "You're doing great," she whispered. Lily's eyes were wide, but she nodded. Her small body slowly began to relax, just a little. Miss Eleanor kept her tone light as she answered the operator's questions. "Yes, tall man, dark clothes, standing under the trees near the east gate. No, he hasn't approached us. But his eyes, he's not blinking much, like he's waiting for something." She listened again. Then she said, "All right, we'll stay right here. Yes, thank you. Please hurry." She ended the call and slowly lowered the phone into her lap. Her heart was thudding so loud she was sure Lily could hear it. "Everything's fine, dear," she said in a calm, loving voice. "They'll be here soon." Lily looked up at her, her eyes glassy with fear and hope all at once. "He told me. He was my uncle," she whispered. "He said my mom sent him, but I don't have an uncle." Miss Eleanor felt her stomach twist. "He lied," she said softly. "And you were very smart not to believe him." Lily nodded slowly. "I was so scared. I didn't know where to go." "But you found someone," Miss Eleanor said, brushing a loose hair from Lily's face. "You found me. And I promise I won't let anything happen to you." Suddenly, the man took a step forward. Not much, just a few inches, but it was enough. Miss Eleanor felt her breath catch. He was testing the waters, maybe unsure, maybe growing bold. She kept her face calm, still smiling. "Stay close," she whispered. "Whatever happens, don't let go." Lily pressed closer to her side. They sat like that, the two of them, pretending to be just another family enjoying the park. But beneath the surface, every nerve in Miss Eleanor's body was lit up, her instincts on high alert. Somewhere in the distance, the faint sound of sirens began to rise, and Miss Eleanor's hand gripped Lily's just a little tighter. Help was on the way, but they'd have to hold on just a little longer. The sound of sirens was still distant, just a soft wail threading through the warm afternoon air. But to Miss Eleanor, it was the most beautiful sound she'd heard in years. She didn't show it, of course. She couldn't. Not yet. The man was still there, closer now, maybe 20 feet away. He hadn't said a word, hadn't moved with any urgency, but the way he stood, the way his eyes clung to Lily, sent a chill crawling up Miss Eleanor's spine. She kept her posture relaxed, her voice steady. "So," she said with a soft smile, loud enough for him to hear, "You're still in 3rd grade, right? Time really does fly." Lily nodded quickly, playing along. Her little hands stayed wrapped tightly around Miss Eleanor's. "Yep, 3rd grade. We're doing science stuff right now." Miss Eleanor chuckled gently. "Oh, I remember those days. Your mother hated science. Always said the experiments smelled like boiled eggs." Lily let out a nervous giggle, just enough to sell the story. It was brave. Miss Eleanor gave her a quick, proud squeeze. But then, out of the corner of her eye, she saw movement. The man took another step forward, closer. His shoulders were squared, chin tucked slightly down like he was preparing for something. A confrontation. A decision. He glanced around, once quickly, then back at them. There was a flicker in his eyes. Something unstable. Miss Eleanor's fingers instinctively tightened around Lily's. She couldn't afford to wait for the police to get there. Not entirely. She had to keep this man talking, had to buy every second she could. She turned toward him slightly and gave him the kind of warm, harmless smile she reserved for nosy neighbors and awkward conversations at grocery stores. "Beautiful day, isn't it?" she said kindly. The man didn't answer. He just kept staring at Lily. Miss Eleanor tilted her head a bit. "We don't usually see many people over by the east trees. You must like the quiet too." Still nothing. Then, after a long pause, he finally spoke. "She's not your granddaughter," he said. His voice was flat, cold. Miss Eleanor felt her skin prickle, but she didn't flinch. "Oh, she is," she said cheerfully. "She's just grown so much, even I barely recognized her at first." He took another slow step forward. He was close enough now that Miss Eleanor could see something sticking out slightly in his jacket pocket. Her stomach turned. "You don't even know her name," the man said. Miss Eleanor raised an eyebrow, still smiling, but there was steel under her tone now. "You must have misheard. I just called her Lily." Lily sat up straighter, nodding quickly. "I told her I like peanut butter cookies too," she added, playing along. "I always tell Grandma that." The man narrowed his eyes. Miss Eleanor could feel his suspicion building, like pressure behind a sealed door. "Leave us be," she said, her voice firm now. "We're just having a quiet afternoon." He didn't answer, but he didn't walk away either. Miss Eleanor could hear her own heartbeat now, fast and loud in her ears. She leaned down toward Lily, speaking softly but clearly. "If he gets closer," she said, "I want you to run toward the street. Don't stop. Just run. There'll be people. Someone will help." Lily looked up at her, eyes wide with fear. "But what about you?" Miss Eleanor gave her a tight smile. "Let me worry about that. I'm not as slow as I look." Suddenly, the man took another step, this time quicker, more confident. Miss Eleanor stood. Not quickly, not like she was afraid. She stood the way a grandmother would stand to stretch her legs, calm, measured. But she positioned herself directly in front of Lily. "Go sit on the swing set, dear," she said over her shoulder. "I'll be right there." Lily didn't move. Now, Lily. The girl hesitated, then slid off the bench, her knees wobbling. She walked toward the playground slowly, as if unsure what to do. The man's eyes flicked toward her. Miss Eleanor stepped forward. "You take one more step toward her," she said, her voice low, "and I swear you'll regret it." Her voice wasn't loud, but it had weight. Years of motherhood, of standing up when others couldn't, of knowing when something was truly wrong. The man hesitated, and in that tiny pause, that moment of stillness, sirens grew louder. Closer now. Miss Eleanor saw his eyes shift. He heard it too. The man turned, scanning for an exit. Too late. Red and blue lights flashed at the edge of the park. A cruiser rolled into view, then another behind it. The screech of brakes, the slam of car doors. "Police! Don't move!" Miss Eleanor didn't look away from the man, but she reached back blindly and felt Lily's small hand in hers again. "You're safe now," she whispered. But inside, she knew. It wasn't over yet. Not quite. Miss Eleanor didn't move. She stood between Lily and the man like a shield, small, old, gentle-looking, but unshakable. Her heart was pounding, her knees aching, but she refused to step aside. The police had arrived, but they were still too far. She could hear them shouting, could see them, running into the park. But her focus stayed on the man in front of her. He was breathing harder now, eyes darting, hands clenched. He looked like a cornered animal, dangerous and desperate. "You called them," he said, his voice low and bitter. "You called the cops." Miss Eleanor didn't answer. She didn't need to. Her eyes told the truth. The man sneered, took a step closer. "You don't know what you've done." Miss Eleanor didn't flinch. She stared straight at him, her voice steady. "What you were doing was wrong," she said, "and I wasn't going to sit here and let you get away with it." Behind her, Lily's hand trembled in hers. The man reached into his jacket. Miss Eleanor's eyes dropped instantly, saw the metal glint before he even pulled it out. A knife. Small. Rusted, but deadly enough. Her breath caught in her throat, but she didn't move. She couldn't. "Don't do this," she said. "Please, don't make this worse than it already is." The man's face twisted with anger. "You think you're helping her? You don't understand. She's mine. She's a child," Miss Eleanor said firmly. "Not yours, not anyone's. And she's scared. She came to me because she knew you weren't safe." The sirens were right behind them now. Footsteps pounded against the park pathway. Shouts filled the air, but still, the man didn't back down. Miss Eleanor knew she was running out of time. Her legs ached, her body was tired, but she stood tall. She did something unexpected. She softened. She took one small step forward, her voice gentle now. "You don't have to do this," she said. "Look at yourself. This isn't who you are. You're not going to fix anything with fear." The man's hand shook. His eyes flicked from the knife to her face, and for just a second, he looked lost. Behind him, a police officer shouted again. "Drop the weapon. Now." Miss Eleanor kept talking. "I don't know your story," she said quietly. "But I know pain when I see it. I see it in your eyes. Maybe you've been through something. Maybe you're hurting. But this isn't the way." The man's hand started to lower, just slightly. Then Lily made a sound, a sharp breath, a whimper. The man's eyes snapped toward her. Everything in him changed. The softness was gone. He raised the knife again. Without thinking, Miss Eleanor moved. Instinct took over. She stepped between them, arms wide, her body blocking Lily completely. "You'll have to go through me," she said, her voice shaking. Not from fear, but from the effort of standing so firmly. The man froze. He stared at her. This woman who should have been too old to stand up to him. This woman who had no weapon, no strength, no reason to protect a child she'd just met. But she did. She did it without thinking, without hesitation, and it confused him. Confused him just long enough. In that moment, the police reached them. 2 officers closed in fast, tackling him from behind. The knife clattered to the ground as he went down hard, yelling and kicking. Miss Eleanor pulled Lily to her side, wrapping both arms around her. The little girl buried her face in Eleanor's cardigan and clung tight. "It's okay," Eleanor whispered. "It's over. It's over now." Officers wrestled the man to his feet, cuffed and restrained him, then led him away. He shouted something, but Miss Eleanor didn't hear it. She didn't care. All that mattered was the small girl pressed against her chest, finally sobbing, finally letting the fear out. One officer came over quickly. "Ma'am, are you too hurt?" Miss Eleanor shook her head. Her voice was hoarse. "No, just tired." He nodded gently. "You're safe now. You both are. That was incredibly brave." She didn't answer. She just held Lily tighter. The girl looked up at her, tear-streaked, eyes full of something deep. Not just gratitude. Trust. Real trust. "You didn't let him." "Get me," she whispered. Miss Eleanor nodded. "No, I didn't." She looked past the officer toward the setting sun. The sky was gold, fading to pink. It should have been a simple day, a quiet morning, just another hour feeding birds. But it had become something else, something unforgettable. And deep down, Miss Eleanor knew. Everything had changed. The park was quiet again. Not the peaceful, lazy quiet of earlier that morning. This quiet was different. Heavier. Like the ground itself was trying to settle after what had just happened. Miss Eleanor sat back down on the bench, holding Lily, close to her side. The little girl had stopped crying, but her breaths were still uneven, catching in her throat like small hiccups. Her face was pressed against Miss Eleanor's shoulder, her hands wrapped tightly in the fabric of Eleanor's cardigan, as if letting go would make everything come rushing back. An officer stood nearby, keeping watch while others continued speaking, into radios and gathering statements. One of them walked past with the man in cuffs, head down, face blank, led toward a waiting police car. Lily didn't look. Miss Eleanor gently turned her head away. "You don't need to see him," she whispered. Lily didn't answer, but she nodded. They sat that way for several minutes. The weight of what had just happened began to settle into Miss Eleanor's bones. Her legs felt stiff, her heart tired. But she held herself together, for Lily's sake. Then, finally, the little girl stirred. "Miss Eleanor?" she asked, her voice small. "Yes, sweetheart?" There was a pause. Then, "Can I tell you something?" Miss Eleanor looked down at her, brushing a strand of hair off her forehead. "You can tell me anything." Lily looked at the ground, her fingers fidgeting nervously. "He started talking to me at school. Outside the gate. At first he just said hi, asked how my day was. I thought maybe he was a teacher or a parent or something." Miss Eleanor stayed quiet, letting her speak. "Then he told me my mom had sent him," Lily continued, her voice trembling. "He said she had to work late and that he was picking me up. He knew my name. He knew what school I went to. He even said my teacher's name." Eleanor's stomach twisted. "I didn't believe him," Lily added quickly, as if she needed Miss Eleanor to know that. "But I didn't tell anyone, not my mom, not my dad. I thought maybe I was being silly." Miss Eleanor leaned in gently. "You were not being silly." "But they're always busy," Lily said, her voice cracking. "Every time I try to talk, they're rushing somewhere, or looking at their phones, or telling me, 'Not now, Lily.' I thought maybe they'd just say I imagined it." Miss Eleanor felt her throat tighten. She reached down and took Lily's hand in hers. "You did the bravest thing today," she said, voice soft but sure. "You trusted your gut. You asked for help, and you kept going, even when you were scared." "That's not silly, Lily. That's strong." Lily blinked up at her, her lips trembling. "You really think so?" "I know so," Eleanor said. "And I'm so proud of you." The little girl leaned against her again, this time not from fear, but from relief. Just then, they heard hurried footsteps approaching. Miss Eleanor looked up and saw a man and a woman running toward them, panic written across their faces. "Lily!" the woman cried, her voice sharp with emotion. Lily turned. "Mom? Dad?" She ran to them, arms wide, and they scooped her up in an instant. Her parents clung to her, tears already spilling as they held her tight, kissing her cheeks, her hair, repeating over and over, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry." Miss Eleanor stood quietly nearby, watching the reunion with a gentle expression. There was joy in her heart, yes, but also a deep ache. She knew that feeling, that yearning for family, that wish to be needed again. After a few moments, Lily pulled back and pointed toward the bench. "She helped me," she said, her voice rising. "She saved me. She didn't even know me, but she helped." Lily's parents turned to look at Miss Eleanor. The mother stepped forward, first. Her hands were shaking. I don't even know what to say," she said. "Thank you doesn't feel like enough." Miss Eleanor shook her head. "She found me," she said quietly. "All I did was listen." The father joined them, holding Lily close. "We failed her," he said, his voice breaking. "She tried to tell us, and we were too distracted to hear it. But you listened. You saw her." Miss Eleanor gave a small, kind smile. "Sometimes that's all it takes." Lily ran back to her and grabbed her hand. "Can she come to dinner?" she asked her parents. "Please, I want her to come home with us." The parents looked at each other, and then the mother nodded. "Yes," she said, tears still in her eyes. "Please join us. We'd be honored." Miss Eleanor hesitated, not because she didn't want to go, but because it had been so long since someone had asked. Then she looked at Lily, that little hand in hers, that trust, that bond. "I'd love to," she said softly. As they walked together out of the park, the air felt lighter, even with the weight of the day behind them. The sun was starting to set, painting the sky in soft gold and lavender. And for the first time in years, Miss Eleanor felt something return to her heart, a sense of belonging, of family, of purpose. Miss Eleanor had never expected to walk into someone else's home that night, let alone feel like she belonged there. But here she was. She stood quietly just inside the front door of Lily's home, cardigan buttoned, her old leather shoes neatly placed on the mat. She clutched her canvas bag in one hand, not quite sure what to do with the other. The warmth of the house pressed around her like a thick blanket. It smelled faintly of vanilla candles and dinner in the oven. Lily was already barefoot, racing down the hallway, her voice echoing. "Grandma's." "Here!" The word hit Miss Eleanor unexpectedly. She wasn't her real grandmother, of course, but Lily had said it like it was the most natural thing in the world, like she'd been waiting for her all along. Lily's mother peeked out from the kitchen, eyes red but smiling. "Please, make yourself comfortable. Dinner's just about ready." Miss Eleanor nodded and stepped into the living room, taking in the soft couch, the toys scattered near the window, the drawings taped crookedly to the fridge. It had been years since she'd stood in a house filled with life like this. She didn't realize how much she missed the clutter, the mess, the realness of it all. Lily came bounding back and sat next to her on the couch, scooting so close that their arms touched. "I'm going to show you my school project after dinner," she said brightly. "I made a volcano. It doesn't really explode, though. Mom said no baking soda in the living room. Miss Eleanor smiled. That sounds like a wise rule. The father came in carrying a tray of glasses, pausing when he saw them together. Can I get you some tea, Miss Eleanor? Or maybe something cold? Tea would be lovely, thank you. The meal was simple: roast chicken, mashed potatoes, green beans. But to Miss Eleanor, it felt like a feast. Not because of the food, but because of the conversation. Lily chattered on about her school, her friends, her favorite teacher, and both her parents listened. Really listened. It was different now. They weren't distracted. They weren't brushing her off. They hung on every word like they finally realized how easily they could have lost her. Miss Eleanor mostly listened. But every now and then she'd add a little story of her own, about the time her son glued his fingers together with school glue, or when her daughter tried to mail herself to her grandma's house in a laundry basket. Lily laughed so hard at that one, she almost spilled her juice. And just like that, something shifted. By dessert, Miss Eleanor wasn't a guest anymore. She was simply there, like she belonged. After dinner, Lily tugged her hand and led her down the hall. Come see my room. Miss Eleanor followed her, her joints aching a bit, but her heart lighter than it had been in years. Lily's room was full of books and stuffed animals, half-drawn pictures, and a glow-in-the-dark star stuck to the wall above her bed. She flopped onto the rug and pulled a shoebox from under her bed. This is my treasure box, she announced, opening it with a bit of ceremony. Inside were little paper bracelets, rocks with glitter glued on, a worn-out photo of her family at the beach, and a paper heart with the words, "You are safe," written in crayon. Lily handed it to Miss Eleanor. I made that after today, she said shyly. I don't want to forget. Miss Eleanor looked at the crayon heart, her vision blurring just a little. Can I keep this? She asked gently. Lily smiled and nodded. It's for you. They sat in silence for a while, the soft hum of conversation and dishes clinking echoing from the kitchen. Miss Eleanor watched Lily gently rearranging her treasure box. I don't know if you'll believe me, Lily said suddenly, but I kind of feel like you're my real grandma now. Miss Eleanor blinked, caught completely off guard. You do? Lily nodded. You made me feel safe. That's what grandmas do, right? Miss Eleanor swallowed hard and took a slow breath. Yes, sweetheart, she said. That's exactly what they do. By the time she got ready to leave, it was already dark outside. Lily had fallen asleep on the couch, curled up under a blanket, one hand still wrapped around Miss Eleanor's fingers. Her parents offered to drive her home, but she politely refused. She wanted the walk. She needed the time. As she stepped into the cool night air, the streetlights flickered gently above her, and the world felt strangely calm. For years, her days had followed a quiet rhythm: feed the birds, watch the world, return home alone. But tonight, something was different. She wasn't going back to the same kind of silence. Not anymore. There was a new voice in her world now. A small one, but strong, brave. And somehow, that voice had made her feel alive again. As she walked slowly home, the crayon heart safe in her coat pocket, Miss Eleanor realized something important. She hadn't just saved Lily that day. Lily had saved her too. Spring came slowly that year, as if the world itself needed time to breathe after everything that had happened. The trees in Oakwood Park wore new leaves like soft green coats. The birds returned, noisier and more cheerful than before. Children's laughter once again floated through the air like music, and the sun lingered a little longer each afternoon. Miss Eleanor was back on her usual bench, just as before. Same sweater, same paper bag of birdseed. But this time, she wasn't alone. Lily sat beside her, swinging her legs over the edge of the bench, humming a tune only she seemed to know. Every so often, she'd nudge Miss Eleanor gently with her shoulder and grin without a word. Eleanor would nudge her back, pretending to be annoyed, though her smile always gave her away. A small pigeon landed near Lily's feet. "You think this one remembers us?" she asked, tossing a few seeds near it. Miss Eleanor chuckled. "Probably just remembers the snacks." They fell into a comfortable silence. It had been almost a year since that day. The day Lily whispered, "Pretend you know me." The day Miss Eleanor stood between a little girl and a man with a knife. The day everything changed. Since then, Sunday dinners had become a quiet tradition. Lily's parents, once strangers, now felt like family. Her father had fixed the squeaky door on Eleanor's apartment without being asked. Her mother often brought over leftover pie or a casserole, always with a handwritten note folded under the foil. And Lily? Lily had started calling every Saturday morning just to ask what time Grandma Eleanor would be coming over. Miss Eleanor had gone from being a lonely woman in a quiet park to becoming someone's person again. And it had all started with one whisper. Lily reached into her backpack and pulled out a folded piece of colored paper. "I made this at school," she said, holding it out. "It's for you." Miss Eleanor unfolded it carefully. Inside was a drawing, 2 figures sitting on a bench under a tree. One with silver hair, the other with pigtails. Above them, in big bubble letters, were the words, "We saved each other." Miss Eleanor's throat tightened. She looked down at Lily, who was pretending not to watch, clearly nervous about her reaction. "This is beautiful," she said quietly, running her fingers over the paper. "And very true." Lily smiled. "I showed it to my teacher. She cried." "I believe it." They sat together for a moment, watching the breeze stir the branches overhead. Then Lily spoke again, more quietly this time. "Do you still think about him?" "That man?" Miss Eleanor nodded slowly. "Yes, I do. Not every day anymore, but sometimes." "I do too," Lily said, eyes fixed on the ground. "Sometimes I dream he's still there, but then I remember I got away." "You did more than get away," Miss Eleanor said, her voice firm but kind. "You chose to run. You found someone. You asked for help. That took more courage than most people have." Lily didn't say anything right away, but she moved closer, resting her head gently on Miss Eleanor's shoulder. "I wasn't sure anyone would help me." Miss Eleanor placed a hand over Lily's. "But someone did," she whispered. "And now, we help each other." Across the park, a group of kids shouted from the jungle gym. A dog barked playfully as it chased after a ball. The world had moved on, but here on this bench, something sacred remained. The quiet, unshakable bond between a girl who had been scared and a woman who had simply shown up. Miss Eleanor looked out over the park and felt something stir deep inside her. Not fear, not loneliness. Peace. Lily sat up again, brushing a crumb off her pants. "Do you think other kids get help like I did?" Miss Eleanor thought for a moment, then answered honestly. "Some do. Some don't. That's why we have to pay attention. We have to notice things. Speak up. Listen, when no one else does." Lily nodded like she understood more than her age should allow. "I want to be like you," she said, "when I grow up." Miss Eleanor smiled, her heart swelling. "You already are, Lily." As the sun began to dip behind the trees, casting long shadows across the grass, Miss Eleanor reached into her cardigan pocket and pulled out something small. The crayon heart. "You are safe." She kept it with her always now. Not because she needed the reminder, but because it reminded her why she showed up. She turned to Lily. "Ready to head home?" Lily grinned. "Only if you promise to stay for dinner. We're making spaghetti. Dad bought garlic bread and everything." Miss Eleanor stood, her joints creaking a little more than usual, and held out her hand. "I wouldn't miss it for the world." Hand in hand, they walked out of the park. Two people who had once been strangers, now bound by something stronger than blood. Not every hero wears a badge. Not every rescuer arrives with sirens. Sometimes all it takes is an open heart, a steady voice, and someone willing to say, "You're safe now." And sometimes, in saving someone else, we find ourselves saved too.